Amy Thorne. I'm CEO of DBM and Executive Director of the SCLA, and I am thrilled to be sitting here today with Jett McCandless from Project 44. He's the founder and CEO, and we've known each other for a long time, and you are about to meet him firsthand in our C-suite commentaries. So Jett, thank you for coming. I'm so excited to have you join us, and it's just been such a pleasure for me to watch Project 44 skyrocket to success under your great leadership over the last 10 years, right? It was 10 years ago, I think, that you founded Project 44.
It's been a while. Thanks, Amy, for having me on your show. It's really special. I remember talking to you in the early days about Project 44, and having that support from you and your team was incredible. So thank you. Proud to be here. Excited.
Oh, so am I. I think it's really exciting. So, long time to create this. What have been your biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in that manifestation path?
Yes, building a company is a SaaS company is really building it brick by brick. But for starters at Project 44, one of the things we had to do first was convince the shippers and the carriers that the technology they had invested in the last 20 years was outdated, and that companies have been using this electronic data exchange, or EDI, that required many connections to communicate with all their suppliers, that just wasn't going to work anymore, and that they should use Project 44 for new technology called APIs, or Application Programming Interface. And so for a shipper, a 3PL, or a carrier, there were a lot of advantages. They could just connect to us one time, and they could have much higher quality data flow back and forth. But you can imagine there are so many folks that were in the twilight part of their career that had just spent the last 2 decades investing in this old technology, and the idea of having that ripped out and something new put in place was pretty challenging. But as the world's changed, as the market's changed, there's been some really nice tailwinds there, and companies have had a strong desire for a higher quality technology that's synchronous, high fidelity, that enables things that just weren't possible with the previous generation of technology, like ETAs and managing inventory more efficiently, and just overall better customer experience. So convincing the shippers and the carriers and the 3PLs, that was quite challenging. Second, I think when you have a startup, I was pretty fortunate from another startup, and so I was able to kind of get this company bootstrapped, as they would call it, but just convincing investors to raise capital so we could actually scale the company. An enterprise SaaS company is very capital intensive to build, and most of the venture capitalists in San Francisco at that time were really focused on just investing in San Francisco, maybe some East Coast cities. We were based in Chicago, which was the transportation mecca. So we thought we were in the right location. We had a lot of domain talent. But at the time, they wanted us to be Uber for freight. Notice I didn't say Uber Freight because Uber Freight didn't exist then. They just wanted everything to be very Uber-like. That just wasn't my vision. I didn't think that's what the transportation industry needed. I thought that the industry needed this API connectivity, someone to be the connective tissue to provide the real-time visibility and automation and collaboration for the shipments and the inventory, so that the shippers and the carriers and the LSPs knew where the shipments were and what to do next. And fortunately, we found some really top-tier investors that shared that similar vision.
That is awesome. And from that moment when you started it and you were invested and you had the capital to you really started to get that critical mass of customers, how long was that period?
Well, if you read the book, Crossing the Chasm, I would say that we just probably crossed the chasm here probably within the last year. There's probably a couple data signs that support that, but anytime you have an innovation bell curve, you have the first movers, the early movers, then you have this chasm of the early majority. And you expect the 3PLs to be on the one side of the chasm and Amazon, but now we're starting to get other brands that don't necessarily move at the tip of the spear. They're buying the visibility solution. In addition to that, you can see Gartner comes out with a Magic Quadrant here soon for visibility. So, and that's just because of the amount of demand and interest that they have in the product. So yeah, it took many years. I think we had probably, I'd have to look at it, but my guess would be is we probably collected about 50 logos that bought into the vision in the first 4 years, and now we probably have signed on about 70 to 90 new customers a quarter. So quite a bit different. It's really accelerating.
It definitely is. And do you think that your biggest strength, I mean, definitely in the area of supply chain visibility. But how would you identify that?
So I think our biggest strength is our culture. And it has to be and so that's what I think our biggest strength is. And it just comes down to level of performance, the trust and transparency we have in our culture. The supply chain is really fascinating. It's what I'm most passionate about, but you could really take the Project 44 team and put them in probably any industry. And because of the culture, the talent, the transparency, the trust, and their desire to be challenged, that's what makes Project 44 so successful. And the pace of supply chain really offers the right group, the folks that have the right attitude, plenty of opportunities to test their skills. I think for me as the CEO, that's what I had to figure out. What type of culture did we want to create and did we want to nurture? And for me, there's a couple of things, and it really just comes down to performance-based culture and then obsessing over the customers. And I think if you can have those two foundational pieces, then you can attract the best talent. You have the strongest teams that are willing to really just tackle the hardest problem.
I like that. I think those are two really great building blocks, performance-based and really customer-centric, I think is so important. But as the leader, you're always setting that example, and I know your work ethic. It is amazing. Really good. So looking down the road, trends, what do you see coming up in the next 5 to 10 years in transportation? Lots of big changes, right? Autonomous vehicles, what are you thinking? And how is Project 44 going to be there?
Yes, so great question. And, I think my answer would probably ties in COVID-19. I think that's been such a big, it's been such a big accelerator for digitalization and supply chain. And I agree with you, autonomous vehicles will certainly be disruptive, and what happens inside a warehouse will be really quite impressive to see what that evolves. I'm probably a little bit more biased in the lens I look through. I tend to look at the transportation logistics and see how that impacts supply chain. So if I think about the world, there's inventory in motion and inventory at rest. And of course, logistics and transport tends to deal with a lot of inventory in motion. And when I look at inventory in motion, I see from COVID, you see so many consumers that are buying products at home, and we really see the supply chains impacted. And I think that there are a lot of habits that have been formed from that type of behavior of ordering product at home. And I think supply chains are more efficient at delivering that product to folks' homes and can do it at a lower cost point. So I'm expecting that trend to continue. There are also more companies that are better at delivering that experience. And I think that was led by Amazon about the time we met many years ago. And I can remember an SCLA conference not too long ago, folks saying, is it possible that Amazon can be successful at delivering in 2 days? And then someone even said, well, can it be possible that Amazon can deliver in 2 hours? And most experts in the room thought there's no way, it's not sustainable. And now, that was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, that question was asked. And now what I think is almost every chief supply chain officer is being challenged or has already accomplished similar type results. Mm-hmm. Well, as consumers are at home and buying product, I'm expecting them to take that experience back into their corporate world, and more in that B2B when a PO is actually exchanged, whether it's a couple $100,000 or hundreds of millions of dollars. And so I think we're continuing to see that happen over the next couple of years. But it won't just be that last mile, final mile that happens. I think overall supply chains are just going to need to be a lot more resilient. And that end-to-end supply chain from the factory to the DC to the retail shelf, there's going to have to be a lot more nimble to manage these disruptions that we're seeing that are out there, whether it's COVID or the Suez Canal, and even Rotterdam and Southern California. These places were all backed up and having their own kind of micro challenges that were impacting more macro. And now you have this big macro event that's unfolding here. And so I think what we'll see here is companies are going to want this resilient supply chain. They're looking for automation, collaboration, and visibility. And they're going to be looking for ways that can be improved, whether it's with predictive and prescriptive analytics that, maybe we'll talk about a little bit later today.
So do you see that as the next big disruption then, the predictive analytics and the, really looking at the data that the visibility gives you? Because I know there's always been a challenge. I remember people used to have the data, but they didn't know what to do with it or how to analyze it. And it was too much. And now, we've just come that much further down the road in the last 5 to 6 years that, we're able to be very predictive and help our supply chains become more resilient.
Yes, I do think that's probably the next big disruptive technology. And like you said, oftentimes folks always say, well, we have so much data, we just don't know what to do with it. But maybe it was the way the data was formatted, or maybe it was the idea that the data itself wasn't real time, that it was asynchronous, and that it wasn't, and that it itself was siloed and didn't have a lot of context for other data. But now that we have, like for us, we're connected into so many different systems, in the warehouse management systems, yard management systems, TMSs, carriers, even at the driver level, the shipper, the consignee, the supplier, really all the parties, the 3PL. And now that there's unique identifiers that normalize that so it can be accessible through a one-to-many type portal, when you really start to put machine learning on that, we already have amazing predictive analytics, and very soon it'll be prescriptive analytics, where there aren't humans involved much at all. So as we continue to see digitalization and that automation, visibility, and collaboration, all the way from PO creation to the end of the cycle of the transport, we're going to see some huge opportunities and disruptions there.
Yeah, so that's the big area. And how's Project 44 really positioning? How are you positioning the company to take advantage of that? Are you pushing more into that area?
Yes, absolutely. So I think that we have I think it can be quantified that we have the largest transportation and logistics network in the world, and all that data is synchronous. And we have a great team of data scientists and engineers that are constantly looking at this data and talking to our customers and trying to find out what problems that they want to solve. And by listening to the customer and try to get a better understanding, it's pretty incredible how many problems we're able to solve now. I remember I've been in transportation for over 20 years now, and most of the conversations haven't been that exciting. There's always these ideas of what would like to be solved or what's possible. And I've been a bit helpless in those 15 years, but more recently, it's great to be able to say, we can actually do that. Let's sit down, let's have a whiteboarding session, let's talk about how we could solve those problems. So it's really, really exciting.
It is. So in this way, you've led through change, not just the change that's been brought about by COVID, but the change you've experienced as a company, and you're sort of at the front of the wave of this, whole new way of doing business. And as you went through that, what has been one of your, I guess, from a professional challenge, what has been? You spoke about your culture, how you value that, how you set the culture, and then you've had this unbelievable change going on. COVID has just really put a spotlight on all of the problems, really with global transportation that we're having. And so what have you done to sort of reach within you and inspire those around you?
Well, thanks for asking that question. I think that's a journey in itself, and I don't think I've arrived at the destination. I've had to invent myself, or reinvent myself many, many times, but still be conscious and think about, what are my guiding principles and morals and ethics. But growing up in transportation, starting on the carrier side and on the dock, that's quite a bit different than leading a technology company globally. And so what I've always tried to, I kind of reflected along the way. I thought one thing I know I can always do is lead from the front, regardless of what part of the supply chain I'm in or what my role is. And as a CEO, really just identifying the best folks, the processes and growing, then hiring those best folks and trying to inspire them and challenge them to solve the toughest problems. I truly believe that the team is really everything. So when folks say, how do you lead, or how do you lead through change, or a question similar to that, it's really, I'm so fortunate to have a world-class team that surrounds me. I think as a leader, what I try to do is empower the team. So hire the absolute best, empower the team to make decisions about the work. Then I try to stay close enough to coach. Or if I can't coach, bring in a professional coach. But then also stay far enough back that I can see the entire playing field, what's happening out there. So I can keep the company heading towards the vision, and develop and help those players on the team really kind of develop. Leading a company like Project 44, I think in these challenging times is difficult, but I truly love it and find a lot of passion in it. It's definitely one of my favorite ways I enjoy spending my time is with the team members and the customers, and just trying to find ways to excel and challenge everyone.
That's great. I love it. So talent's very important to you, your team, you're setting the strategy, and operations, you're smart enough to hire the best people and let them focus on that. So, if you looked at the percentage of your time in any given day, where do those three buckets fall? Strategy, talent, team, operations.
I would say it's probably over a day. It'd be tough for me to really give a number. I think over a week, though, it's probably a third. And it's probably about how I spend my time.
That's great. Well, you are a busy man, and I am very grateful that you gave us some of your precious time today. So again, on behalf of all of us in the industry, we're very grateful for what Project 44 has been able to accomplish. You were the first in your field, so that is an exceptional accomplishment. And I've had the pleasure of knowing you through each and every step of the way. So very grateful for that, and very much wishing you great success in the future. So any closing comments that you wanted to make here at the end of our C-suite commentaries?
Well, I would just like to thank you for your time today, and thank you for setting this up, and for the folks that listened, and just a great deal of gratitude for all the many folks across the 2 decades that have sponsored me and mentored me, that have taken the time to sit down and explain complex challenges, and have believed in Project 44 to help solve those challenges. So thank you for everyone out there, and I appreciate Amy, you and your team.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.